Welcome to the Upward Running Podcast, where faith fuels your fitness journey.
Welcome back to the Upward Running Podcast. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. Well, I am your running host, Dean Thompson, and this time we're coming to you from the Upward Sports headquarters. And boy, do we have a treat for you this week. We have a special guest in the house, and the house is different. So this is all good. We came to your house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're here in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and we are joined by Claire Boyce. Now, Claire is the person she's our upward running mark. You do all sorts of stuff for us, and so we're so glad to have you here, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be on the podcast.
Now, how long have you been with Upward Sports now?
Okay, brace yourself. It's been a whopping 2 months.
2 months?
2 months.
Wow, time flies when
it
you're
really has flown by.
It has, doesn't it? But it's fun, right?
I love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
And you are a runner.
I am a runner.
So that just makes it even better.
Yes, it was truly a God thing. So it's a dream job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to get into that here
Okay.
shortly. Before we get to that, let's do our weekly stuff. Our post of the week this week comes from Richard Ball. He said this: "The whole family joined me today. I'm having a hard time with my voice today. Shaved off 4 minutes between last year and this year. The weather was cold, but I was very warm. The race was actually 0.02 short, so I had to extend the run a little. I found that is a common thing. The race course is off, or sometimes it's the GPS of the watch, which could be because of the amount of people so close together accessing GPS at the same time, delays in starting the tracking, etc. So what I did was I just ran the extra 0.02. Happy with my pacing. Happy that I PR'd in the 2 mile, the 1 mile, and half mile segments. I also PR'd my 5K time, but didn't get credit for that on Strava. I'm so thankful to run. This year has been tough. Family health issues, injuries, job stress, and life being life. Yet, I've been able to run and compete in multiple 5Ks and 2 10Ks. Ran more miles this year than the past 5 years. I'm so thankful to run with my family. I'm so proud of each of them. Thankful that they are healthy to do this. Thankful that they wanted to do this. What a great run today. God is good. I'm so thankful for all that He has done. Thankful for His love, grace, and mercy. Enjoy today. Happy Thanksgiving." So I was pulling all this stuff right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And so lots of turkey trots that I was going through. There were a bunch of folks. Did you ran a turkey trot, right?
I did run a turkey trot. Yes, it's tradition.
I didn't run a turkey trot this year. I normally do. But I had just got through running that 71 miles, and my legs just didn't feel like trying to run fast.
That is a good excuse.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give it to you this year, but next
Right.
year you need to come back
I'll be
with
back.
vengeance. Yes.
I'll be on it. All right. Well, there's a number of things in this post, and one of the things I wanted to talk about was the GPS thing, where he's talking about the GPS thing being off. There is a reason why we don't measure race courses with a GPS watch, because they're not accurate. Now, they are accurate, but they're not accurate. In other words, what happens, there's two things that happen. Sometimes the GPS misses a spot or two and cuts things short, and sometimes it adds distance because you can't run the shortest line. So when you run a race, typically if you run a 5K, if you ran that race properly and if the GPS measured it properly, it will not say 3.1 miles. It will say 3.12, 3.13, because it's almost impossible to run a perfectly straight line. And when a course is measured, it is measured the shortest line possible on that course if it's measured appropriately. So if it's a certified course, you're probably not going to be accurate. Now, in this case, Richard's watch came out short, which means he probably turned a corner and it kind of missed the apex of that corner, and sometimes that happens too. Matter of fact, this past week I ran the 71 miles is what the actual distance was on the track, but my watch said I ran 69. So, I mean, I'm not one of those guys. I'm one of the. He said he ran the extra .02.
You wouldn't do that?
I would have been done. Yeah, no.
I'd have to be like him. I would have to run. Yep, I would have to.
Yeah. See, I don't. I'll run. I have stopped runs at like 7.98 miles.
No, yeah, because
I'm done. Well, I'm running with a partner, somebody else there, and they get to 8 miles, and so okay. Matter of fact, just this week I ran with a friend of mine from Iowa, and he was down for Thanksgiving, and we went on a 10-mile run. Well, he got 10 miles on his watch. Mine said 9.6 something. I mean, mine wasn't even close.
Was off.
Yeah, it was way off. And his was right because there were mile markers on the
course.
On the course, so mine was wrong. And every once in a while, for whatever reason, GPS watches just do that. So don't worry about that. If that happens, it's probably a one-off. It's probably going to be fine next time. Don't worry about it. And if you want to run the extra if I didn't want to run the extra 600 meters to make up the distance, I could have. I'm sure that the friend, he would have said, hey, go ahead and finish it up. He would have been fine. But I don't care. In the end, it's all good. So there, and then of course he's talking here about being thankful. And of course, we're just coming off of Thanksgiving, and sometimes we take for granted the fact we can get out there and run, and we should be thankful for being able to run. Thankful for, in this case, for him running more miles. I'm going to run more miles this year than I've ever run before.
Really?
Yes.
How many miles are you at right now?
I just hit 3,000 miles.
Wow.
So this year I'm going to get over my goal has been 5,000 K.
Okay.
So I'm going to get over 5,000 K this year.
So you're going to meet your goal.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you. So I'm 59. So when you can do that at 59, I mean, how blessed am I?
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty awesome. So yeah, be thankful for that. And then I want to announce something that I'm going to do next year. Talking about Thanksgiving, okay? And you're going to love this, being the social media person that you are.
Okay, I'm excited.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. And I want to put this on record so that I actually do it.
Good idea.
So a couple of years ago, I announced right at the last podcast of the year that I was going to do the Bible in a Year thing.
Okay.
That turned out to be a pretty big undertaking. But this is a little bit less than that, but it's very similar. So every day this year, I am going to post something I'm thankful for. Every day, 365 different things that I'm thankful for. And here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to go to that page. If you're a Run Club member, you go to the social pages, and I want you to add below my post something you're thankful for. So at the end of the year, I will have listed 365 things I'm thankful for, and you will have listed 365 things you're thankful for. What do you think?
That's amazing.
That'll be fun, right?
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And so I'll keep you accountable, and then you can keep me accountable for always commenting on the post.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's good. We'll do that.
I love that.
Yeah. So we'll have fun with that this year. Our run of the week comes from Stephanie Pinchock Marino. And like I said, we had a lot of turkey trotters. And she said this: ran the entire 5K in the turkey costume. Now I have time to beat for my next turkey trot in a blow-up turkey. This is a thing I've not done. I've never run in a costume. Have you ever run in a costume?
I've run in a few costumes, but they were low key. So with the Disney races, I mean, it's almost expected that you have to dress up. So I've dressed up a few times, but nothing elaborate.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is inspiring.
No turkey costume.
No turkey costume.
But that sounds like fun.
Maybe next year.
Yeah. I almost one time got in the sticky costume and ran a race. I was just going to show up at the starting line and then run the race, but I didn't. So but did Lane do it? I think Lane did it one year, and it was fun. It was fun. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
Now I can't imagine the sticky costume trying to run in that.
Right.
That would be so hard. That'd be challenging in itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a good challenge. Who knows?
Yeah. So I've never done it, but maybe one day I'll do that. Our trivia question from last week. Have you ever noticed that you weigh less when you wake up than you did when you went to sleep? And why is that? Did you know the answer to this one?
I have no idea.
Is that right?
I could make something up, but it might not be accurate.
What would you make up?
Well, you're just sleeping. So you're not drinking any water. You're not eating anything. Maybe?
So why would you lose weight, though? What causes you to lose weight?
I have no idea.
Well, here's what it is.
Yes, please tell me.
It's your breathing. When you breathe out, you breathe moisture out, right? If we talk about fog in the mirror, if you breathe on a mirror, well, that's moisture that comes out of your mouth. So when you breathe at night, that's water leaving your body.
Okay, so I was almost right with the water, but I would never have guessed actually breathing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So that's why you weigh less in the morning than you do in the evening.
That's really cool.
Here's the thing, though. You're not really weighing less because you have to replace that water because there's a little bit of a dehydration factor there, and you really need to replace that water. So you're losing water weight, which is not ideal, right? So it's not great. It's not a great thing that you lost weight. It's not a bad thing either, but that's why.
Because it comes back.
Yeah. So cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Upward Sports equips churches to run self-sustaining sports ministries in their communities. Whether you're a sports fanatic or on staff at a church, Upward Sports will give you all the tools you need to run a first-class sports ministry that allows you to reach families in your community. Upward Sports offers basketball, soccer, flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, baseball, and softball through league and camp offerings. At Upward Sports, we want to help your church make a difference and give you increased opportunities to share the gospel. Learn more today at upward.org. That's upward.org.
All right, we're back. And so we've been talking about every podcast we share that we're starting classes. Well, not in January, but in February. We had it was originally going to be January, but now it's going to be February.
Yeah.
And so we want you to be, and you can send them a message to customer service at runforgod.com if you think you might want to, if you've ever thought that you might want to start an upward running class, please send a message and get involved in one of our webinars and so that you can understand what you're getting yourself into. And I promise you'll be blessed by it. So here's my question.
Okay.
Are you going to start a class?
Let's do it.
Are you going to do one in your church?
I think we should.
Yeah, I think
we should.
Yeah.
So my church, as it stands, has a running group of women already. So this will be a perfect bridge in the gap there. So
so there
fantastic.
You go. All right. There's one more. We're doing it in Cohutta.
Yeah.
All roads lead to Cohutta. Did you know that?
Follow the yellow brick road to Cohutta.
So tell us, Claire, about your family. Tell us where you come from, all that stuff. I heard some really interesting things about you last night.
Yes.
You got to tell a little bit. You don't have to tell the whole story, but at least a little.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So very long story short, I was born in Charlotte and I was adopted out of Charlotte. Yeah. So I could not have handpicked better parents for myself. Like God really showed me his mercy through my parents and how I was raised. They're fantastic. So my mom and my dad, we all live on family land. So it's me and my husband, Steven, and our two kids, Jeremiah and Kezia. And we live here. And my parents are building a tiny house on the property here. And then my aunt lives in a house here. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
I am so jealous.
I love it.
Whenever I meet anybody they have a lot of family that lives close together, I'm so jealous because my family is literally on all four corners of the country.
Wow.
I have family in Washington, Southern California, in New York, and in Florida.
Wow.
I mean, I literally have
everywhere.
Yes. and so we don't ever get together. When we get together, our family reunions are called funerals.
Oh.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
And but so I'm so jealous, but that's awesome.
It's fun. And the kids. So,
and how old are your kids?
So Jeremiah is 11. He is into all things sports. So he
played basketball last night.
Yes, he did.
And he crushed it.
He did. He got 10 points and he's on the junior Knights team, which is the 5th and 6th grade team. So he's 11 and we didn't win a single game last year. And so it was so great that they won for the first time on this team. And they communicated. They played like a team. So they've really matured in a year, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great to hear.
So that's Jeremiah. And then Kezia is 9, and she is into all things glitter and glam. And she does do sports. And she has decided to do musical theater this year. So she has her first play on Thursday night.
Well, fun.
Yeah.
Do either one of them run?
They do run. So they like to run with me. Sometimes when I go out, I'm like, I'm going for a run. And so they'll come with me. Kezia ran her first 5K last December with me.
Congrats. All right.
Yeah, so she was 8. It was raining and it was cold, but she didn't hate it. Now, I did have to piggyback her up a few hills. So that was hard. I was so sore from that. But both of them were running in the same race on December 14th this year. And Jeremiah's going to run with us, and it's his first 5K officially.
All right.
And he's got a goal of, I think, an 8:30 minute mile. So
All
we'll
right.
see how it goes.
Wow, that's
I know.
fantastic. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, quick story about carrying somebody on your back.
Yes.
So this was a long, long time ago.
Okay.
My high school coach has a race on New Year's Eve every year. It starts at 10 minutes till midnight. It's a 2.5 mile race, and it's an estimated time of arrival race. So before the race starts, you have to estimate the amount of time it's going to take you.
Okay.
And you can't run with a watch or a phone or anything else. You have to leave all that stuff at the house. And it starts at his house. And so you run this 2.5 miles. Well, me and my wife, we had put down some times we were going to run, and I knew what it was going to take to run those times. Well, my wife wasn't going to make it, and for whatever time we had written down, and we wrote down that she would run 2 seconds faster than me.
Okay.
And so we ran, and she was almost sick feeling, and she was really struggling.
Oh, no.
So I put her on my back, and probably ran about I don't know, about a half a mile with her on my back.
Wow.
And she took third place. It's true.
Oh my goodness.
True story.
That is so fun though.
Yeah. So I took fourth because I was 2 seconds behind her, so we were the same time off. But since she finished before me, she got the award, and so it was cool. It was cool anyway.
Aw, that is a fun story.
So you run? How much do you run?
So I mean, all the time if I can, really. So
how many miles a week do you think you run?
Well, right now it is very much condensed. So after about 2 weeks after the marathon in October, my knee started hurting. And so,
that's right. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I was running maybe 7-8 miles a week since then. But this week I'm running 2.5 miles every day because I set a goal at the beginning of the year to run, okay, don't make fun of me, but 1,000 miles in the year.
That is awesome.
So that was my goal. And I'm a little behind now. So I have to run because of the injury. I have to run at 2 miles, 2.5 miles about every day to make that goal. Okay. So I've got to do it.
But you're getting down to last month.
I know.
Yeah.
I can do it. It's doable.
It is
doable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
So,
and if your knee gets to feeling better, you can run a little bit more and make up for that and have some off days. And,
yep. And I did have to have a talk with myself. I'm like, Claire, if you are injured, do not run. It is not worth being able to not run for longer if you further injure yourself. So I had a come to Jesus meeting with myself, but so far so good.
Good.
So far so good. So
good. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about you and things that you enjoy, but you got a great story to share.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you writing this story, and it's similar in a lot of ways to the journeys that we read about from a lot of people that have been associated with Run for God, Upward Running for years, but it's a little bit different. And so I like the little bit different in your story. And so I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let you read your own story.
Okay, this will be fun. Let's read it. Okay, so in my sophomore year of college, I found myself at the very end of a cross-country meet. Not just in dead last place, but I felt utterly out of place among dedicated, passionate runners. It was embarrassing. I was thoroughly embarrassed. I was mortified, and I was convinced that I did not belong. So, for 12 years, I carried that moment with me. It's been a lingering shadow of self-doubt that has whispered, I'm not enough. I wasn't enough. I'm not enough. But God was not finished with me. Through prayer, persistence, and trust in His plan, I kept showing up, one step at a time, 1 mile at a time. So, in January 2024, I finally experienced a breakthrough. So for the first time, I was running times that the collegiate athletes were achieving. I shaved over 7 minutes off of my personal best. So I finally felt like I belonged. In March, I ran another race, and I placed 7th overall and 3rd female, which was my goal, was to be top 3 female overall. And I got to accomplish that. So that day wasn't just a victory on the course, but it was a testament to God's faithfulness in my life. But the truth, the hard truth, running a fast time didn't make me a runner. It didn't make me less of a runner. I I was a runner. I was already a runner. It didn't matter what time I ran.
Yeah.
So I had to stop comparing myself to others and accept that God made me exactly the way He wanted me. And if that was coming in dead last place, then there we go, dead last place. So my value wasn't in my speed, but it was in Him who created me. So God reminded me that I was made in His image. So Genesis 1:27. Comparing myself to others only distracted me from the unique race He set before me. He made each of us perfect for His purpose, and He uses our strengths in the ways we may not always see. So as I embraced that truth, I found freedom, not just in running, but in everyday life, because it's so easy to get caught in that comparison trap with everything.
Yep.
So you may be wondering, what bridged these 2 points in my life? So not just dedication and effort, but my faith. So my identity as a follower of Christ reshaped how I saw the struggle. When I felt weak, I leaned into God's strength. So 2 Corinthians 12:9. When doubt crept in, I remembered that my worth was not in the finish line, but in Christ. So He equipped me for every step of the journey, not just running, but in everyday life as well. So Philippians 4:13. The transformation goes beyond physical endurance. It's about letting God redefine your limits, surrendering the lies of being inadequate, and trusting Him to work in the moments where we feel like we fall short. So to anyone feeling out of place, behind, or doubting their potential, your story is not set in stone. So with Christ, every day offers a new page to turn, a new path to forge. Embrace it. Rewrite your story. I was on this journey for 12 years. 12 years it took me to run a time that the collegiate athletes were running. And I was a collegiate athlete.
Yeah.
I was just a really slow one. And that's okay. So the finish line is just the beginning of a new race with God leading the way.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Thanks.
And so true for all of us. And we've seen that. We see so many times that people's running and their journey running just bleeds over into all the other things they do, or it's the other way around. The other things they do bleeds into their running, but it's all. We used to have this story in the 5K challenge called Pancakes and Waffles.
Okay.
Where we used to talk about how a lot of times we live our lives like waffles, where everything's compartmentalized, and that syrup goes into these different compartments.
Yeah.
And our lives are meant to be lived as pancakes, where we pour God over all of it, and it just runs over everything, and that's what you experience.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool thing.
Thank you.
And today, gosh, in today's world, it is so difficult. I remember the peer pressure when I was a kid, which is a lot of years ago. But I remember the peer pressure, but it doesn't seem like it was anywhere near as much as it is today. And I guess it's social media.
It's got to be social media, because it's at the tip of our fingertips. Wherever we go, whatever we're doing, I mean, you're probably going to always have your phone on you, unless you're in that race on New Year's Day. But
yeah.
So it's instant. It's at our fingertips everywhere we go, everywhere we look. So.
And the biggest problem is that we're comparing our lives to everybody else's highlight reel, because we're not posting the low moments.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we think we don't measure up, as you talked about.
Yeah.
We feel inadequate because, well, look what Sally's doing. Why can't I do what Sally's doing? And the truth is, Sally might have done that thing, but she also did these other 5 things over here that you don't know about. and we all have the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I like the way you talk about God kind of redefining our limits, too, because we put limits on ourselves because the world imposes those limits, and we have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
So do you think that breakthrough came because kind of the pressure of being the collegiate athlete, and do you think it was partly because that pressure was off and there was no reason, and you just let it come to you? Right.
It was for fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because in college it's basically a job, because they are helping you with tuition. So it's basically a job. So that was my job. That's what I had to do. Not that was a bad thing, but it just wasn't fun anymore. It was, but it wasn't. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Okay.
Totally get what you mean, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as much as I love to run, and I do, I've done it every day for the last 13 years, but there's still those days where I don't like it. I don't want to go out and run.
Right.
This past Sunday was one of those days. I felt so bad on Sunday, and it was just a struggle. And there's just days like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. So you got a scripture passage here, Isaiah 40:31, which is one of my favorites.
Aw.
But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And then you follow that up with, when I felt depleted or defeated, the verse reminded me that my strength didn't have to come from me. It came from the Lord. Through him, I could run with renewed purpose and energy. Runners in general are type A people. We really are, right? I mean, runners in general are people, they take the bull by the horns, and they, that's part of the reason why we're runners. We're just talking about, somebody was talking about how their son, Jennifer, was talking about her son didn't like to run because it was hard. And that's the way it is for a lot of people. Like, if I'm good at something else, I'd rather do that something else.
Right.
Because it's easier. So that makes it, because of that, because we're such type A people and we like to seize them up, it's harder to get out of God's way, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is.
I like how this verse applies to the statement when you said running fast times doesn't make you a runner. Because, this verse talks about flying and running and walking. But one thing it doesn't say is, it doesn't say sitting on the sidelines. It requires some action from us in order for it to apply to us. Yeah. Good stuff. So did you find it hard to give God that control? Were you that person who you're hanging on to it, and then so how did you let that go?
I have to pray, fasting and prayer. So every time a doubt crept up, or, well, do you really have this God? Nope, he does. All right, get your mind right. You got to pray. So I've tried to use that in multiple areas of my life, where if I have the doubt creep in, I immediately try to surrender it to God. Now, does that happen every time? I'm human. No, it doesn't. But I truly try to do that. And it's been life-changing.
Yeah. So that was an evolution, though, right? So, and I'm familiar with that myself, with a lot of things where you just, it doesn't come all of a sudden. And I always like to say, I've always had, and I've talked about this on our podcast before, anger issues, where when I get angry, I can get angry. I can get pretty angry about things. And over time, at first, you'd get angry about something, and it would take me a day to get over it.
Okay.
And then it was half a day. And then it was an hour. And now, if I get mad about something, it takes me about 30 seconds, and then I'm like,
Isn't that incredible?
It really is. And it's all God, right? 2 Corinthians 2:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And you said, my moment of weakness in the cross-country meet became the catalyst for God's grace to transform my mindset, reminding me that his power shines brightest when we feel the most unworthy.
And unworthy was definitely the feeling at that finish line. That was humbling.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Very humbling.
Yeah, because that's not something anybody thinks about. I mean, there are people who they do, but you're not. If you go to a local 5K, you're nowhere near the back of the line. So when you're running with a bunch of college athletes, it's a whole different ballgame.
And it was a regional cross-country meet, so it was some of the best athletes on these teams. I still remember the course. I remember what I was, my exact pair of shoes, my exact spikes. Oh, my goodness. It's hard to get out of there, isn't it? I know. I do have my bib. I still have my bib, though.
Do you?
I do.
I've kept every bib I've ever had, over the years. There's no telling how many hundreds I have. Yeah, I remember this happened to me just a couple of years ago. I ran a race. There's a race in Chattanooga. It's called the Cam Run. And it's a memorial run for a guy that actually was hit by a car. He was an elite athlete and was hit by a car and killed while he was out on a run. Well, they decided to have this race near where that happened. And it's a really fast race. It's a super competitive race. They get people from he ran for Zap Endurance, which is a pretty elite group.
Yeah.
And so there's usually some Zap Endurance athletes that come in and they'll run the 5K in they'll run low 14s. They'll run fast. And then if you're one of the top 25, I think it is, you get to come back that night and in a different location you run a 1 mile race.
Oh, wow.
So you have to qualify for the 1 mile race by running fast enough in the 5K, and you come back and you run the mile. Well, a couple of years ago, I ran a great race, and I ran faster than anybody my age deserves to run. And so I made it into the mile race. Well, they split up the group, and they had the elite folks running, and then they had the other folks that were still all pretty fast, but it wasn't. They put me in the elite race, and I literally almost got lapped. Now I didn't run very well, but I ran a 5:13 mile, which is still pretty fast, especially for an old guy, right? And I literally almost got lapped. The guy almost lapped me before I went in that last lap because he ran 4:02. So. So I finished last in that race. That was my whole point of telling you. I understand, and when you get through, you're like, that's all I had. Sorry.
4:02. I can't imagine.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
That is crazy.
So was there something special happening in that to have you was it a particularly bad race that day, or was it just the competition? Or was it
everything.
Both? It was everything.
Everything above, yes.
Yeah, wow. Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." This verse reminds me that I am made perfectly in God's image. My pace, my abilities, and my strengths are part of his divine design for my life. I don't need to be anyone else because God doesn't make mistakes. I love that.
And it's not only about all the good too. Even my shortcomings. I mean, he knows. Like he gave me those for a reason.
That's right. That's right.
It's weird if you think about that. So
it is. But how many times have we seen those weaknesses actually help us in ways?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Just crazy.
It's incredible.
Yeah. We're made the way we are. I would love to have hair. But I don't, and it's just life, and that's just part of And there's a lot of people who get worked up about things like that, and we really do have to go back. And actually, I look at lack of hair as a blessing because it's less to worry about. But that's just the way I'm wired. But really, there's a lot of people. I mean, my father combed he still does to this day. My father's 80. And he's still combing his hair from the side of his head over the top of his head. We have nobody knows how far back his hairline goes. We don't know. Because if he goes out and it's windy, he'll have a hat on because he's not going to let anybody know how far back his. And it really bothers him. Now, I think it's a lot less so today than it was years ago.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, we need to realize God wanted me to be bald for whatever reason. And I'm okay with that. And we all need to say that. And you know what? It's good to say it out loud.
It is good to say it out loud. It makes a difference.
That's right.
Sometimes it's going to be hard, but it makes a difference.
That's right.
We do hard things around here. That can be one of them.
That's right. So why do you think we have such a hard time accepting who we are? I mean, why do we want to be somebody else?
Comparison trap.
Yeah. Back to the social media thing, right?
Just like we said earlier, the social media, it's always at our constant fingertips.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I don't know that we connect these dots, but I thought about this in this context, in that what we're doing when we feel inadequate is we're coveting, because we're coveting what somebody else has, right? And that's one of the big 10.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think that's not that big a deal. So what I want, and it's okay for us to want more, but there's some things you can't want more. I can't grow more hair. It's just not going to happen. And we just have to, we have to enjoy what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
A question: how can you let go of comparisons and embrace the truth that you are uniquely made in God's image, perfectly designed for the race He has called you to run? I think the difficulty a lot of times is in accepting what that race is, because we think that we should be in a different circumstance. And I've talked about before, I had a job for 25 years. I worked in the same place for 25 years. And then I was never unemployed in my life. And then all of a sudden I was unemployed. And I didn't like that race. That was not the race I signed up for. It was not the race I wanted to be running, but it was the race God had for me. And it led to me running or becoming part of Run for God and eventually Upward Running. And that never, ever would have happened without the negative thing happening. I mean, there's no question about it. Because it just couldn't happen financially. And so often, and in that time, did I think that at the time? No, I had some pretty low moments in that time. But now I look back on it and I realize, man, I should have just been thankful for what happened. But we're never thankful in those moments. So how do we do that? How do we see that when we're running that race that's so bad? We had a death in the family, something or sickness that hits us, or something just really negative. How do we embrace that rather than going, this is not the race I signed up for, God?
We have to rely on God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
God's faithfulness. He knows that was not a surprise to him. So we have to cling onto the hope and the faith of, okay, this is the season I'm in. This is the valley I'm in. So use me, Lord. What can you use me right now in these moments to make a difference? So
Yeah. Have you heard the story of when I missed the one day of running?
No.
So you don't know this story. So
maybe I do.
I've told this story on here a few times. I'll try to make it brief, but I had run every day for 5.5 years.
Okay.
And then I got the flu. But I got out and I went down on a treadmill in my basement and I ran a mile every day. I mean, it would take me 20 minutes.
But you did it.
But I did it. And it was miserable. But I got through it. Got to Saturday. By Saturday, I ran a normal run. Everything was great. I was working in the yard on Sunday and just doing stuff. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, that next day, Monday morning, I woke up, just shot up out of bed, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to run yesterday. How devastating is that, right? You've run every day for 5.5 years. You have the intention of continuing to run. You just ran through the flu, and now I just missed a day. And so I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out, how do I fix this? I got to fix this. If I get up right now, can I count it as yesterday? And I'm like, well, that's not honest. And then I'm thinking, well, nobody's going to ask. But that's not honest. So I literally, in that moment, I laid back and I thought, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me in this moment? And you know what God told me? He said, listen, sometimes you feel guilty about your running. That you feel, sometimes you start to think, is running too important to me? Am I putting that before God? And that was God's way of saying, you clearly are not too obsessed with running, or you wouldn't have forgotten to run. And it was his way of saying, just go out there and have fun. I made you that way. And gosh, it was that one day that I missed is such a blessing today.
Wow.
Because of that. And so now it's been 13 years. I've missed that one day in 13 years.
But that to me is almost maybe not a life-changing moment, but that thought that you had, from God,
it was
that is life-changing. That's incredible.
It was absolutely a life-changing moment. Yeah. Oh. In that when we're down and when things are bad, it takes us a minute. It took me a minute to get to God.
Yeah.
But when we do, He'll give us good answers if we'll ask for them. Another question: what does running your own race look like in your life right now? It looks a lot like Upward Running, I think, for us.
You got a point there, Dean.
It's just, if you would have told me 15 years ago that I was going to be making a living running and talking about running and God and I would have told you there's just no way.
There's no way that's happening.
That's ridiculous. But that's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it looks like right now, right? And we got this new. I mean, we're about to come out with this new app. It's about to be
So
pretty
close.
Yeah, we're so close.
We're so close.
Isn't it going to be awesome?
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
Goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and it's interesting that between the two of us, we have two completely different. Because I'm twice your age, and so it's like a whole different world that you've grown up in, that you live in than I have. And so, looking at running our own race, we're in the same race.
Yeah,
we're doing the same thing, right? I mean, we got a little bit different job in that race, but it's the same race.
Yeah,
isn't it cool how God brings people together from? I mean, such diversity.
It really is.
In people. And we see that in races. When you go to a race, you see big people, you see little people, you see fast people, you see slow people, you see people that are just walking, you see people that, just every conceivable permutation of person you can find.
Every people in costumes.
Yeah. It's cool. And the last question. How can you trust God to use your unique strengths and abilities for His purpose? I guess I kind of look at this from a different angle because I think that we struggle with how do I use my unique strengths and abilities for His purpose, or how can I trust God, I guess is what you're saying here. And I'm saying, how can you not trust God? How can we get to the point where we understand and recognize who God is and then not trust Him?
Yeah.
I mean, how can I lay in that bed and think, okay, God, what are you trying to tell me? He gives me a direct answer that still makes me tear up to talk about today and not trust Him.
Yeah.
And yet we have weakness. We mentioned before, we're human and we have weak points and we have those times when we don't do it. But in the long run, we always come back to it, hopefully, because, gosh, why wouldn't we?
I love that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we? Upward Running is the best way to stay motivated for your fitness and faith journeys. You get these weekly podcasts, but there's so much more. We have proven training plans available for you, whether you're just at the beginning of your fitness quest or you've been running for 20 years. We have something for everyone, and it doesn't matter where you are with God either. We have something for you there too. If you're not a member, join today at upwardrunning.com. It is the best value you'll find to fuel both your faith and your fitness. All right, so we're back, and you didn't really share any of your times. So that the time that you ran this past January, and when you said you had finally had that breakthrough,
yes.
How fast did you run?
So it's not incredibly fast, but I was in the 21 minutes.
Well, let me tell you something. For the people listening to this podcast, a lot of them are going, "Oh, it's not very fast. It's just 21 minutes." They're going, she's crazy fast. I'm telling you.
Well, in comparison to the collegiate runners, so
depends on who you compare yourself
to. It's true.
to.
It's very true. But I was.
But 21 minutes is fast.
Excited.
Yes.
Very excited.
Yes, that is great.
Yeah.
That is great. So, do you have goals to get even faster?
If my knee will cooperate, yes.
It will.
Yes, I would love to. So the 10K race is my absolute favorite race. So It's a little longer than a 5K. It's not quite at the half marathon. So you can go out and race a 10K and still feel good. Hopefully. At least that's what I'm telling myself. So I would love to run, I don't know, maybe like a 45-minute 10K, 45, 47.
That seems doable. Yep.
Depending, my math might be wrong. I'm not very good at math, but I want a PR in the 10K. So that's the goal. Should my knee cooperate, that'll be a 2025 goal. So
all right,
keep me accountable.
All right,
we'll play the accountability game.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I think you can do it.
I think so.
Have you ever looked at one of those charts that shows equivalent performances? So there are charts that say if you run 21 minutes for a 5K, this is what you should be able to run for a 10K based on the same fitness level.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll do that as soon as we are done here.
I've got an app on my phone. I'll have to show it to you.
Okay.
Let me get through. All right. So we talked about so when your knee is cooperating,
yes.
You just ran the Chicago Marathon.
I did.
I didn't even bring that up. Oh my gosh.
I did.
So you ran the Chicago Marathon, and that went pretty well. You had a lot of fun there, right?
It did go well. I ran with one of my really great friends, our running buddy. So we went down on Thursday, and then we raced on Sunday, and then came home the same day. But that was the best thing we did because we got to sleep in our own bed. But
yeah.
It was a lot of fun. The crowds were electric.
Yeah.
They were simply electric, and that helped a ton. So I did have something really weird happen. My legs went completely numb, and my husband and the kids did not go with me, and so they were watching live to see when I would cross the finish line, and apparently I just kind of collapsed at the finish line, and I get a text from Steve, and he says, are you good? I'm like, no.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
But it was fun. It was my first world marathon.
Yeah. Okay. So it was your second marathon.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So my very first marathon was the Columbus Marathon in Ohio.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because each mile there is dedicated to one of the children in the children's hospital there.
Yeah.
And so the patient and the family gets out and they decorate the mile. So
Yeah.
it's a really good race.
So you've also run the Disney half marathon, right?
Yes, so
which is another fun race.
It is a lot of fun. My mom decided that she wanted to run for her 60th birthday. So we chose that race for her 60th birthday. She's never run a day in her life and decides to, I'm going to do a half marathon. So that was her first race.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we made it a tradition. Now that tradition kind of stopped when COVID came around, but we'll get back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you like about running?
What do I like about running? How long do we have? Because I got a lot of reasons.
Yeah, whatever you got on your mind.
I think the first reason that I love to run is that it's freeing.
Yeah.
It's freeing. If I've had a good day, a bad day, I go run, and it feels freeing to me.
I get that.
It might sound crazy, but I love that it's hard.
Yeah.
And no matter how long you've been running, there's always a new goal. You can make the run as hard as you want. You can make it as easy as you want, but you can just go out on a run.
Yeah.
And I also love that feeling you get after you have done a really hard workout or a really hard race. It's electrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. The soreness or the weakness or the what is it that, or just the accomplishment?
I think it's the
accomplishment
feeling. But I do love to be sore. I know that sounds
No, that doesn't sound weird at all.
crazy,
We've talked
but
about that on here before. Yeah.
it's just a good feeling.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it. So what do you dislike about running?
Losing my toenails.
Did you lose some after the marathon?
I didn't this time.
Okay.
Which
First time
is
then?
great. So I did a 50K in January of 2024, and all of my toenails got bruised.
Oh, good heavens. I don't think I knew that.
But they didn't fall off, and so I tried, knowing that they were still bruised going into marathon training because they take forever to heal.
They do.
And so I kept them very short, and I wore the right socks, and I wore the right toe box. So I tried so hard not to lose them, and I was successfler.
I've got 2 black toenails right now.
Oh, yeah.
From this past weekend. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. I lost 2 toenails at the 100-miler. And it looks like I'm probably one of the ones that I lost at the 100-miler. I'm probably going to lose again. But yeah.
Who needs toenails? Who needs toenails?
What the heck?
Right?
Anything else you don't like about running?
This might be very particular, but running in the summer and then you're all sweaty and you get in your car, I don't like a sweaty car. And so I feel weird because I don't want my seatbelt to smell bad. So I'm holding my seatbelt out. And
I've got it's called Runs Done. Have you ever seen those? It's a cover that goes over your seat. So it's meant to protect your seat from your sweat.
I need it.
Yeah. You can find those online. I think they're made in Chattanooga, actually, too.
Really?
Yeah. The guy in Chattanooga makes them.
Know.
Yeah. So I've got one of those. So I usually put down a towel and my run's done over the top of that, and my seats stay clean.
Good.
Although they really need to make a runs done seatbelt cover.
Yes, that's my thing.
You're right, because it's hard to.
And they're cloth and.
But I tell you what I do. When I get through running in the summertime, and I sweat pretty good, and when I always dry myself off and then change shirts.
Smart.
I always take an extra shirt with me and put on a dry
smart.
shirt, because it just there's nothing that feels better than being all sweaty and putting on a clean shirt. Oh my gosh, I feel so good. It's like clean.
Okay.
It's like clean sheet day in your bed.
That's my favorite
right?
day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try it in the summer. Right now it's cold.
Yeah.
I need all the clothes.
Yeah, that's true. So you mentioned your goal on the 10K. Any other running goals you got coming up?
Well,
are there any other marathons you want to run?
I would love to do, and this sounds so cliche, but I would love to do all of the world marathons.
Oh wow, yeah.
Now will that happen? Maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We will see.
So what do you think your next one would be? Would it be New York or Boston?
Probably not Boston. Probably not Boston. I will not be able to qualify for Boston until I'm like 60. But that's okay, because there's time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Maybe New York, Berlin.
And you won't run Boston unless you qualify, because there's charity spots that you can get into Boston.
I didn't know that.
Yes, there are charity spots. Now you have to raise a whole bunch of money to be able to do it, but there are spots where you raise money for a Boston charity and you get in that way.
So there's hope.
Yeah. So
that's a goal. And then we were talking last night about running the Disney World Marathon in January. It's every January for the sole purpose of being able to ride a roller coaster in the middle of a marathon.
Yeah,
that would be so fun. That would be so fun.
That's a good race. That's a good race for sure. You don't realize how big the Disney property is till you run a marathon on it, and you realize it's not a loop course. It's one big loop.
Oh man.
Is the 10K your favorite race distance?
Yes.
You said that. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It just.
It's funny.
It's the best.
It's funny because
it's the best.
Years ago, I hated the 10K.
Why?
Like I loved short stuff and I loved half marathons, but I hated 10Ks. And I think it was just because I could never get it right. I could never figure out the right pacing or whatever to run one well, and so I just hated it. Today I've run a lot more 10Ks, and I don't hate them like I used to, but for a long time, man, I was an anti 10K guy.
Oh man.
So is Chicago your favorite race you've ever run, or is it Disney race, or is it another one?
I honestly don't know if I could handpick out an absolute favorite race, because each one holds such different and significant memories in my life.
Yeah. And for different reasons, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like the 5K where you ran the 21 minutes for the 5K, that one was pretty special too.
Right, it was.
Yeah.
It really was. And then the Disney races with my mom and my friends, and then going out to eat in Epcot afterwards and dancing with my dad. I mean, those are all great memories, and not necessarily connected like during running, but it was at the race weekend.
Yeah.
And then it's the Chicago Marathon. Of course, that's going to be in my top favorites. So I cling to the memories.
Yeah. Wow. So do you think that over time you'll enjoy the longer races more? Or do you think you'll always be more of a 10K person?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. So the first ultra marathon I did, which was the 50K in January, it was in winter. It was January 25th, I think, or 27th. It poured down rain the absolute entire time. And I'm not talking about just sprinkle. I'm talking about complete downpour. There was puddles that were up to my shins, it felt like. It probably wasn't that high, but it felt like it. So I promised myself I'd never do another ultra. But I also said that about my first marathon too. So it took me 5 years to run another marathon, but
Well, and I get that. I'm still not a fan of the marathon.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It is a hard distance. No matter how much you train, it's hard and it's humbling. And you can do everything right and it still go wrong. I mean, that's true in every race. But
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I recovered faster from that 71-mile run than I do from a marathon.
how?
Well, the marathon's just so much more intense. So I think that's why. But
Yeah.
man, I mean, big difference. Big difference. I mean, like
Wow.
within a week, I felt pretty much back to normal after the 71 miles. After a marathon, it's a month before I feel back to normal.
Is that because you were racing versus just having fun maybe?
I think
or
so.
did you race? I don't know.
No, I think it's just the intensity.
Yeah.
I think the intensity just makes you more sore.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. And so we talked about how accurate the GPS function on your watch is recently. Well, it turns out that's not the only thing that's not accurate sometimes on your watch. This one is called What's the Truth? I capture most of my runs with Garmin and Strava. If you're not familiar with those two platforms, they keep track of a lot of data we record on our watches when we run. Garmin and Strava record much the same information, but they do so in distinctly different ways. Each of them has a section that interprets each run and current fitness level. After I ran a 12-hour run and covered 71 miles, I looked at my Garmin and Strava accounts, and they showed two very different pictures. Strava has a measurement called fitness level. It goes up and down daily in response to the data collected from my watch. When the fitness level goes up, it usually does so a couple of points at a time. The largest increase I ever remember was somewhere around 8 points maybe. So imagine my surprise when I noticed that my fitness level had gone up 37 points. Strava recognized my hard work and rewarded me with an outsized measurement. Garmin, however, has a different measurement. It measures your training status. It's similar to Strava's fitness level, but not exactly the same. I suppose technically you could have a high fitness level but have a low training status if you took some time off, for example. But imagine my surprise when I noticed that my Garmin tells me that my training was unproductive. To Garmin, a 71-mile run is somehow unproductive. What are we to make of these measurements? Obviously, the Garmin measurement was crazy, but so too was the Strava number, just in the opposite direction. This is a good illustration of why I'm not the biggest fan of heart rate training. I'm not saying that there's no merit to heart rate training, but that there are drawbacks in every type of training. Measurements can be off. There are many reasons why your heart rate could be elevated on a particular day, and sometimes that cause is not a reason to dial back your effort. Again, many people have been very successful with heart rate training, so don't hear me say it's a bad thing. But I prefer to go old school when it comes to training. I prefer to go by feeling. It turns out when I do that, more often than not, my paces fall into the appropriate zones. I know, despite what Garmin is telling me, that I had a good day and more than likely improved my fitness. It wasn't as much as Strava says. Or was it as much as Strava says? I don't think so. Now keep in mind that I still keep these measurements. They're very valuable for diagnostic purposes. I'm not saying you should put your watch away and just go by feel. What I am saying is that you should pay just as much attention to the way you feel as to what the measurements tell you. Don't get down if those tools tell you things are going south when you know you don't feel that way. And don't feel like you're an elite athlete just because the numbers look good if your body is telling you otherwise. Use both measurements and the way you feel to understand where your fitness stands. Just like the external things to your running will paint a distorted picture, so too will the world sometimes tell you that you're a failure or that you don't matter in the grand scheme of things. But the Bible tells us that we're all special to God. And if you dig deep inside and talk with Him, that feeling will be confirmed in your heart. Because you see, although the world can be very wrong in its measurement of who you are, the Bible is always accurate. Isaiah 54:10 says, "For the mountains may move and the hills disappear, but even then my faithful love for you will remain. My covenant of blessing will never be broken, says the Lord who has mercy on you." Believe it. Always. In conclusion, use all the measurements around you. Pay attention to what Garmin and Strava tell you and compare it to the way you feel. Also, pay attention to what's going on around you spiritually. We need feedback from the world so we can connect with those who need to hear more about our Savior. But the world is telling you something that is against the Word of God. But if the world is telling you something that is against the Word of God, you can be sure it's wrong. You can always rely on God and His words. Strava, Garmin, crazy.
That is crazy.
Isn't it? Unproductive.
It is crazy.
So
Unproductive. 71 miles. Unproductive.
I laughed so hard when I saw that.
I would too. Yeah.
So I brought up heart rate training. Again, please don't hear me say heart rate training is valueless, because there's a lot of people who really believe in heart rate training. I don't happen to be one of them that likes to use it. And so there's just drawbacks, positives and negatives to everything. So again, I don't want people to feel like I'm an anti heart rate person.
Yeah.
If you like to train my heart rate, man, enjoy it. I've seen I've seen it be a game changer for some people. I remember racing a guy one time he and I had run, we were always battling. And sometimes he would win, sometimes I would win. And he came to this 5K this time, and I was in great shape. And all he had been doing was heart rate training. He was telling me how slow he was running because he was doing heart rate training. And it's like he's trying to get his body to run faster at a lower heart rate. And he was doing this training, and he thought, I don't know what to expect in this race because I've been running so slow.
So slow.
Yeah. He crushed me that day. Absolutely.
Really?
Yes. I ran 16:43 for a 5K, and he beat me.
Wow.
Yes. And so again, heart rate training can be a good thing. You just have to pick one way to do it and do it. I prefer the going by feel. So do you pay attention to those measurements? Do you pay attention to Strava and to Garmin and all that stuff?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd. All the numbers are really fun to me.
Yeah.
And I did dabble in a little bit of the heart rate training this summer.
Yeah.
Wasn't really great at it. But the numbers are fun for me.
Yeah, I enjoy them.
Yeah.
I've always said I like heart rate, I think, is valuable to look at after the run. You know what I mean? I don't like it to diagnose. I don't like it to dictate what I'm doing, but I like it to diagnose what happened when I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So what other numbers are like for me? I like my resting heart rate is important to me.
Yes.
Because the more fatigued my body gets, the higher my resting heart rate tends to be, and that's a valuable measure for me. So that's just kind of a bellwether for me. Do you have one of those?
I look at them all. Recently, and this is a new feature and not quite a number, but Strava has an AI aspect to it, and it'll tell me how it thinks my run was in even more details. I'm like, this is kind of weird.
And it's
kind of
pretty
creepy.
accurate,
I know,
isn't it?
it's
It's creepy.
I know.
Yes.
But
yeah. It'll take the title of your workout and what you ran, the pace you ran, and compare it to everything you've been to. It's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah. We can use these watches and devices for so many things. You know, Debbie, my wife, she gets her 10,000 steps a day in.
Okay.
Every day. I mean, every day.
Great.
And it doesn't matter. It could be pouring and rain outside. Then she's
still
gonna.
gets them?
It's gonna be done walking up and down the hallway in the house if she has
Wow.
to. She gets in her 10,000 steps every single day. And when I say that, the only time that she didn't do it, probably in the last 5 years, the only time she didn't do it was when she had to go in the hospital for surgery. And of course, she couldn't.
Right.
But other than that, as soon as she got through and she was able to, she was right back on her 10,000 steps.
Good for her.
Yeah, it's fun to watch, and it's good for me too because it keeps me motivated as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. The problem with Strava, the problem with Garmin, is that sometimes it makes you do things you don't want to do. Do you ever have that? Mm-hmm. Like, do you ever look down at your watch? Like, I'll look down at my watch and I'll go, oh, I need to be running faster. And then you start running faster when you really didn't need to run faster that day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Does that ever happen?
All the time.
Yeah.
It's probably too many times I would like to admit, but.
Only this year have I recorded almost every run this year.
Okay.
Because normally what I do is I'll take probably one day a week, maybe one day every 2 weeks, and I'll run without my watch. I mean, I'll have my watch on, but I won't turn it on.
Right.
And I'll do that for that very reason, because then I know I can run whatever pace.
Yeah.
And it's not recording. I'm not going to look down at it and see it.
And it's fun.
I'm not going to feel guilty about it or
Right.
anything like that. So that's a tip out there for folks. If you're one of those who, it can be destructive for some people.
It can be.
And if you're one of those, it's a little bit easier to run with my watch during the winter, though, because I have on long sleeves.
Oh, yeah. True.
So I can not pull my sleeves up and not see it. Whereas in the summertime, it's easy just to flip your arm over and see it. Right. So, yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes, too, I mentioned that the Bible tells us how important we are. And it's so easy to lose sight of that, to get caught up in all the, like we've been talking about this whole time, all the social media and all the comparison and stuff, and we get caught up in that. And we need to always go back and realize he tells us we're all valuable. And it doesn't matter who you are out there. If you can think that God he can't believe you're worthwhile. He can't, that you've done, the things you've done are just too bad. He can't forgive you for those things. Oh, yes, he can. Just pick up that Bible and read it, and you'll understand. We just have to realize that he's the one in control and believe it, and we'll all be better off.
Love that.
At Upward Sports, we're all about helping you on your fitness journey, but we also want to support you on your faith journey as well. You can sign up today for the self-paced Bible in a Year Challenge and listen every day as I read through the entire Bible in 365 episodes. As a bonus, I also give you helpful tips of the day and finish with an encouraging quote in each episode. You must be an Upward Running member to participate in this exciting and edifying challenge. Sign up and start listening today.
Every week I share a reason why running and/or walking is so awesome, and this week I decided this was the reason. We meet people we'd never meet otherwise. Think about it. If it weren't for running, I would have never met you.
That is true.
Isn't that true?
That's true.
And so we meet cool people because we're runners. And I think that's cool. I mean, how many people do you meet? So many people you meet at like races and stuff, and you don't see them any other time.
That's true.
But you feel this connection to them, and they're like, you feel like they're almost close friends, but they're really not.
Exactly.
But you're just connected in this way. And it's a neat thing that we get through running that you don't get through a lot of other activities, right? And I like meeting new and interesting people. So it's a good way to do it. And when you go run places like the Chicago Marathon, you can meet all sorts of interesting people.
All sorts of interesting people. But it's fun. And so
is.
then when you're running next to people, you just strike up a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. So do you follow elite running at all?
I do.
Yeah?
I do a little bit. Of course, the social media we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So who do you like?
So I've most recently but have been following Shari Hopkins.
Okay.
So she just was in the Olympics, and she actually had a really bad performance. So scored 0 points. She knew she was going to not place or not get a medal. And she had the option of continuing to run or race. She did the one with seven different things. The decathlon?
The heptathlon.
Heptathlon. Okay.
Yep,
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So she did that. And so she knew she wasn't going to medal or anything. And she had the choice. Her coach said, okay, do you want to go home or do you want to finish it out? And she chose to finish it out, which was amazing to me.
I love that.
Yep.
I remember that moment when they were
Yeah.
talking about it. And I thought, wow, that's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she's really fun to follow because she gives tips and tricks. And then after the Paris this summer, I was like, okay, I like her. I like her a lot.
Yeah. So any others?
She's the main one. Yeah.
That's interesting. A heptathlete. That's different. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah. What about Connor Mance and Clayton Young, the two BYU guys? You know, they're the two guys that finished 9th and 10th in the Olympics and the marathon.
Okay. They sound familiar.
Yeah.
They sound familiar. I don't follow them hardcore, but I do recognize their name.
Well, they do Clayton Young did a whole series of YouTube videos leading up to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Where every week he did like this training, kind of like a training log of the things that they were doing, and they actually filmed them doing their workouts and things.
That's cool.
And it was really good. It was well done too. And so that made me. That's what really. Actually, it was Travis who told me about those.
Okay.
And I started watching them, and I really enjoyed getting to know. It was Clayton Young, but he trains with Mance, and so they were both there together.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun.
That is.
I've kind of become fans of Connor Mance. Just runs hard. I like a gritty runner. And he's just gritty. He's just this little guy who just looks like he's killing himself all the time. You know, you'll watch him at the beginning. He won 2 NCAA titles in cross country at BYU, and you look at him and they're going through like the 1 mile mark, and he looks like he's killing himself. You're like, well, that guy's not going to be there at the end, and then he winds up winning because he just does it. I love gritty people.
runners. Okay.
Yep.
Noted.
Well, we did have the NCAAs this past weekend. So the NCAA championships, and BYU won men's and women's. So that's not been done for a while. I think the last team to do that was Wisconsin, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's been a while back. And so that was pretty cool. Now, they're coached by 2 different people. So there's a men's coach and there's a women's coach. A lot of programs are coached by the same person, but in their case, there's 2 different people. And so, but the coach for the men's team, Ed Eyestone, has so many successes this year. So not only did his BYU Cougars win the NCAA championship, but he had Clayton Young and Connor Mance are his athletes. He had the guy. Oh, Lord, I'm so bad remembering people's names. But the guy who finished second in the Olympic steeplechase.
Okay.
Maybe the most inspirational race I've ever watched. I mean, if you haven't watched it, you need to go back and watch it. Because this guy was not meant to be in the picture at all. Like, he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the podium. And all of a sudden, going to the last lap, he goes around the leaders and takes the lead. And he's just hammering. And it's like, I got off the couch. I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, oh, go. And anyway, he winds up finishing second. And he never gave up. It was like the guy who won has won just about every race for the last. And even down that last stretch, you could see him. He was like, I'm going to try to catch him, even though you felt like there's no way he could catch him. But he was only a second behind him. He was right there. Anyway. But he's coached all these athletes that have done these amazing things this year. So congratulations to him. And then Diljeet Taylor, that's hard to say, is the women's coach. So congratulations to her. Yeah. They've been good for a while too. So good. Congratulations to BYU. Graham Blanks was the men's winner. Graham Blanks is from the state of Georgia.
Really?
What's interesting is when he was in high school, he was a good runner. He wasn't great. You know, he wasn't.
I love that.
Nobody ever thought he was going to be at the top of the NCAA, and he's won 2 NCAA championships.
Wow.
So that's impressive.
That is impressive.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
So I didn't give him enough credit because I didn't predict it. I thought somebody else would win this year, and he did it anyway. So good for him. Of course, I think both the BYU men and women's teams are very senior laden, especially the men's team. I think they were almost their entire top 7 was seniors. So. You know,
wow.
I don't know how good they're going to do next year.
Time will tell.
We'll see. If Ed Eyestone has anything to do with it, they'll come back strong. All right. Well, how about so we got our trivia question this week. I love this. We got our trivia question this week from your 9-year-old daughter.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. So it was both of them. So Jeremiah and Kezia both.
Okay.
It's like, I need a really good trivia question. So
all right.
we tossed this idea around a few times, but they're like, you have to ask this one. You have to. I'm like, okay. Say less.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So listen, we've never asked a non-running related question for the trivia question.
First time for everything.
That's right. And let me tell you something. I dare you to criticize this 9-year-old girl and 11-year-old boy. So anyway, here's our question for this week. It is, what is the only country in the world that doesn't have a rectangular flag? And there's only one. And it's an interesting flag. And it's a weird shape, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
I couldn't argue with them.
No, absolutely not. And it is a cool piece of trivia.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
So if you know the answer to that one, send an email to dean@upward.org, and if you're the first one that's a Run Club member to answer that question correctly, you'll win $20 off in the store.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I can't wait to see
Yeah.
these answers.
Yeah. And I also asked you for a motivational thought of the week.
Yes.
And so this was your motivational thought of the week. Well, why don't you read your motivational thought of the week?
Okay, let's
Since it's
go.
yours. All right.
So I use this all of the time, more than I like to admit, but sometimes the hardest part is starting. Commit to just 10 minutes. Step outside and give it a try. You might surprise yourself, but even if you turn back, you've already accomplished more than doing nothing.
Yep.
10 minutes.
Amen.
Yeah.
I like that idea of 10 minutes. I've always said, if you'll just get started, a lot of times you'll find out you feel better. But 10 minutes is a really good guide, because if you'll go out there and start doing that thing and do it for at least 10 minutes, that gives your body time to go, okay, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas if you just take a couple of steps because I've had those runs, especially the older I get, the more I have these runs where the first mile is just, it's so hard. And then all of a sudden my body just kind of loosens up and it's like, this isn't really as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then you're right. If you get in 10 minutes, that's 10 more minutes than 0. And that's it's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
I like the concept.
Yeah.
So put that into practice, everybody. That's cool. All right. Well, man, I so appreciate you, Claire, for coming and sharing sharing your story and all the interesting things that you got. You got a whole different perspective on things, and I like it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And good luck with all those goals.
Thank you.
You're gonna run that 45-minute 10K.
It's gonna happen.
It's coming.
It's
coming. It's
it
right around the corner.
Yes.
Yep.
It will.
Amen. You got any final words for anybody?
I do have final words for you.
Okay.
Good job, Dean.
That's supposed to come after the end, though.
Okay, I'll do it.
But that's good. All right.
I was too early.
Until next week, may God bless every step of every run and/or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
That's great.
For more information about Upward Running, visit upwardrunning.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There is nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.